This week's Throwback Thursday series I would like to dedicate to a very special man. Certainly one of the greatest bodybuilders of all time, my idol, who became my friend. I would say one of the most aesthetically pleasing, shapely physiques of all time, most conditioned, ripped to the bone, appreciated by the fans, respected by competitors, loved by women because of that specific characteristic shape of his. If you don't know who I'm talking about, he never won Mr. Olympia. In the 70s, he competed against Arnold, Lou, Franco. He placed twice second and twice third. He is known as the Black Panther, one and only Serge Nubret. For all the true fans that follow bodybuilding since 70s, the time when Serge Nubret was competing, we heard about it, we researched, but then I was blessed to actually have a first-hand opportunity talking to Serge numerous times, seeing him in his gym, Ram gym in France that I went to. He had a very unconventional methods of training and dieting and a philosophy. So let's go one by one. In today's era, when everybody is pointing out of overtraining, oh my God, that's too much. My training is nothing comparing to what Serge Nubret used to do. He trained 6 days a week, 5 hours a day. 5 hours a day, you heard it correctly. And I'm going to tell you, he was known with the moderate weight, super high volume. He was doing freehand squats, 300 reps for 10 sets at a time. And I'm going to tell you, in one of the years I went to Paris and I was in Ram Gym with him, and I'm talking to him. He was telling me about the movie that he wanted to make and have me in it. I'll tell you this in a second. But as he was telling me about this story that he has, with the corner of my eye, I've seen a lady that was just squatting. 10 minutes later, she was still squatting, and 20 minutes later, she was still squatting. And then I realized he is the one training her. And then he told her something in French, and I say, Serge, what is she doing? She was doing a 1,000 rep set. Now try to comprehend what is 1,000. So, of course, I thought, oh, this is crazy, but this is only one set that she's doing. No, she was doing 3. And he thought about 5. So this is just for you to understand what Serge Nubret is. Some of the guys that train with him and follow him, I had a chance to meet Thierry Pastel or Great John Brown. It was just as insane as Serge was. I trained with John Brown, and whatever I can tell you, it's worse than that. And believe me, I'm one of the torturers nowadays. What I experienced with him was just out of this world. That's about training. Now, how about the dieting? I remember back in the day when I was proposing 2 grams of protein per pound of body weight, and everybody was freaking out. Like, oh my God, that's way too much. You don't need that much. Well, guess how much was Serge Nubret eating? He was eating 3 grams of protein per pound. He was known to have 10 to 12 pounds of meat every single day. Now try to comprehend how much meat that is. He would usually take red meat, horse meat or beef. And I had the opportunity once to go to the restaurant with him in Paris. And this is how actually we start the subject of diet. He ordered 2-kilo steak. Now this is 4.4 pounds of beef for lunch. I was shocked. Okay, once in my lifetime I ate 1 kilo in Australia with Adam Wood, Luke Wood's brother. He challenged me, so I managed it. But imagine this, 2 kilos in sitting. Well, he told me that sometimes he would eat 4 kilos. Now, he's also known for infrequent meals. He wasn't eating like we do 6 times a day. He would skip the breakfast usually, sometimes even a lunch. And then for dinner, he would have a whole horse. So just imagine for all of the people that would claim, oh, well, so much food, so much volume is going to blow up your stomach and abs. Did you see Serge Nubret's abs? Have you seen his waistline? So, everything is just blown out of water. Nothing made sense. But listen, who am I to say, or any of us, to tell Serge, hey, you don't know what you're doing. Look at that physique. 5 hours a day of training, 12 pounds of meat a day of eating, and physique like this for a lifetime. Now, he competed and stopped competing, but he continued guest posing. He was very popular guest poser. He guest posed, I've seen him at the age of 59, and then he guest posed at the age of 65. I know that even at the 70s, and right before he died, unfortunately, at the age of 73, he trained 3 hours a day. So you want to talk about dedication, love for a sport, you can't go any further than Serge Nubret. I want to talk about Serge Nubret's bodybuilding career. He was born in 1938 in Guadeloupe, which is in Caribbean islands, but it's a French region. First contest that he entered and won was Mr. Guadeloupe 1958. Then he went 1960 to Montreal, reportedly to show the flag of Guadeloupe, and he won Most Muscular Man of the World award. I'm not sure if that was actual contest, but this is definitely on his record, and he proudly talks about it. 1963 and 64, he competed in NABBA organization in the Universe Pro Division and placed second both times. Finally, in 1969, he started competing in the IFBB Pro competitions, and he placed second in the Mr. World. 1970, in IFBB Mr. Europe, he won the tall class. Yeah, interesting, there was height divisions, but he lost overall to Franco Colombo. In 1972, he competed in his first Mr. Olympia. He placed third behind Arnold and Lou, ahead of Zane and Colombo. 1973, he was tied for a second place with the Franco Colombo behind great Arnold Schwarzenegger. In 1974, again, he was third behind Lou and Arnold, obviously, who won the contest. And finally, in 1975, we all saw in Pumping Iron, he again competed against Lou and Arnold, managed to beat Lou, but lost to Arnold. After that, because there was controversy at that show, and he talked very clearly about it, he was in incredible shape 12 days before the contest, went to Pretoria, South Africa, but they didn't allow him to compete. There was, things they were saying that maybe because he allegedly did some porn movies that they wouldn't let him compete, which was absolutely not true. He was in 25 movies that has nothing to do with the porn. But there was Pumping Iron that was being filmed. They came to France to tape him. He basically refused to do that Pumping Iron documentary for $200. That's why he refused to sign that release. But when he went to the Pretoria, South Africa, day before the contest, they told him that he could indeed compete. So reportedly he lost 12 pounds. He was no longer competitive. In his words, he actually believes that he could have beat the great Arnold, because Arnold was at the time 220 and he was 212, but dropped down to 200 pounds, and it was just not as competitive. I cannot even possibly imagine that he stopped competing, stopped training for 12 days, but he told me that, and he publicly actually said this in one of the interviews. So he was so fed up with the IFBB Federation, and actually he was IFBB vice president in Europe. He chose to compete in again in a NABBA. So he won the NABBA Pro Universe in 1976. And then he was second in Mr. Olympus in the WBBG competition. In 1977, he won that contest. He was second in the NABBA Pro Universe, and he also won WBBG Pro Mr. World. 1978, he placed second at the Pro NABBA Universe, and then 1981, he was second at the Pro World Cup in the WABBA organization. Now, I just posted the pictures from that contest, and you can see great Sergio Oliva and Robbie Robinson right next to him, so you can get the idea what they look like. In 1983, he won professional WABBA World Pro Championships. He stopped competing at that time, but again, continue guest posing. And as he told me in the conversations, he would have up to 50 guest posings a year. So you can imagine it's basically every weekend. He was so popular. He got guest pose even at the age of 65. And it's very hard to comprehend that men can look like this in that age. But another IFBB Pro, which I'm going to soon do the tribute to, Black Prince, Robbie Robinson, proved that. And he's like Serge Nubret, a lifetime bodybuilder, who does it for a love of the sport, not for a love of competition. So this is his professional record. Now I want to tell you about this story that Serge contacted me, and we met in Paris to talk about this possible movie that he wanted to make. Movie was about bodybuilding and direction that bodybuilding was taking. As you know, that 1975 he was very much disturbed with the IFBB treatment, and after that he organized his WABBA organization. But that was not just it. He didn't like what was happening in the 1990s. He approached me even earlier in the 1990s and told me that I'm one of his favorite physiques at the time, because I still exemplify what bodybuilding should be all about: aesthetics, symmetry, proportion, great presentation. So beauty of the sport, that classic look. He didn't like what the leaders were doing and awarding big against. And of course, he wanted me to get in some crazy shape that would really present that beauty. And then at a bodybuilding contest, guess what? I would actually be shot and killed on the stage. Now, that was super interesting to me. Of course, I was super excited. I idolized him, and he was interested in me playing that role. Of course, that never happened. He probably realized it was way too big of the project. But I don't know if any of his friends talked to him about that. And he mentioned, he did directly approach me about it. I was, proud to even listen to his idea, and I wish we did that movie. So this is my little tribute to one of the greatest bodybuilders of all time, Serge Nubret, who influenced me in many possible ways. Now, you heard about his high volume training. He was also doing a giant sets back in the day, having a very little rest between the sets. He was extremely high on a protein intake, same thing that I'm doing since the beginning of my career. And he is known and talked about power of the mind over the physical body, and that whatever you put in your mind, your body can do it. And therefore, he never accepted overtraining, like I don't. And he said that man's power is in mental, emotional, and a physical strength. So it's for you to choose if you're going to be weak, if you're going to be a lion, if you're going to talk like a lion or you're going to be a sheep and be concerned of the opinions of the sheeps. I'm going to leave you with a few more footages and images of great Serge Nubret, my dear friend, no longer with us. God bless his soul.